Bonjour Hadassa Tal.
Bonjour.
Merci beaucoup d'avoir accepté cette petite interview. Nous sommes au festival de Sète, 27e édition 2024. Aujourd'hui, 21 juillet 2024. Tu es poète invité pour représenter Israël ou la poésie hébraïque. Est-ce que tu peux te présenter un petit peu? Qui est Hadassa Tal?
I'm using my poetry to understand who is Hadassa Tal. For me, everything is, I feel that life is rooted in mystery. And actually, if I tell you some biographical, from the outside things, it will be the wrong Hadassa Tal. Hadassa Tal is an Israeli poet. She lives in Tel Aviv. So and so and so. She has a PhD, she has a few books, she's translated in all languages, but that's talking about Hadassa Tal from the outside. The mystery is Hadassa Tal from the inside, and this is the place that my poems try to understand, and I always write my poems from a place which is completely unknown. It follows the music of words, it follows the rhythm, the dancing of words. Only then comes the ideas. I mean, ideas for me are extremely interesting when I read about Chinese roots, about Hebrew roots, about Japanese roots, about Peruvian roots. These are the ideas, but then they come inside, they are integrated into my DNA, and then comes the sound, the music, the poetry.
Est-ce que ton itinéraire personnel et itinéraire poétique, tu peux parler un petit peu de ça et à propos de ta thèse de doctorat aussi, tu as une PhD, du coup c'est là.
The doctorate actually was in time that I didn't know that I will become a poet. For me, poet in this day when I was so young, for me, poet was a prophet. He sits under the sky and God gives him the words. Only then I understood that life gave the heart and now start to work. But it took time, and for the time being that I didn't know what am I doing here on earth, because this was a question that I was asking myself from childhood. Why am I here? What is life? What is it all about? And trying to find an answer, what is a special thing I came here to earth to do? I was trying music, I was trying dancing, and then I wrote my PhD. But the PhD was very academic, it came from the brain, and I could finish everything with distinction, but it didn't mean to me anything. I still had this thirst in my soul, in my spirit, to understand what is it to be a human being in this universe.
What is your answer? C'est quoi ta réponse? Est-ce que tu as trouvé une réponse pour cette question importante?
I went in my life through the most magnificent things and the most sorrowful things. I mean, I had to go through a tragedy of losing my daughter in 1 minute. And I had to understand what is it all about? And actually the last book that I just finished to write and will appear in a few months is called Children of Earth. And there I think I started to find the deep answer that life, not only human life, the life of universe, We are part of universe. It's transformation. It's always transformation. It's starting from plants and trees and birds and animals and human beings and stones. We all come from the same root. Just about, I think it was yesterday, I like to be like in a meditation, in a reverie. And I was thinking about the first word of the Bible. In English, in French, it's in the beginning. In Hebrew, it's another word. It's a special word called Bereshit. And the Hebrew language is very special because it's built on roots. And you have like 3 letters and you can exchange them and it brings you completely different words. And it means that all this family of words, which come from the same origin, have something in common. And when you take the word Bereshit, which is in the beginning, but Bereshit, and you look at the words inside it, you have bara shir, created a poem. So actually everything starts in the Jewish, in the Hebrew way of thinking of the Bible. The creation itself is a poem. I mean, and it's rooted like, you know, like a secret. Deep inside. In the outside, it says, in the beginning, there is God, there is word, there is light, there is night. No. Everything comes from one origin. And you find this wisdom in the Kabbalah, which is the Israeli mysticism, the Hebrew mysticism. You find it in the pre-Buddhism and Hinduism, in the Advaita. You find it all over. The same, when you come to the root, we are all the same. Therefore, the frontier, all the definitions, all the wars. Why?
Quand tu as commencé à écrire, quand et comment tu as commencé à écrire la poésie?
Oh, okay, that's something very mysterious. How did I write? How did it all start? What was the beginning? As I told you, I was looking for what am I? What is my special role in life? I mean, I had like everything, but I knew this is not that. I just finished my PhD and I knew it can be with distinction, but it's not me, it's not the inner me. And as I was looking all the time, one day I thought, wow, maybe I have to sing. But I never had a special voice for singing and I never had an urge to sing. But I said, maybe I have to find a solution. I went to Jerusalem and I found a very good teacher and she said, you are extremely musical, let's start. And I started singing classical music and I thought, it's wonderful, something started to open, but it's not me. After a few months that I was going all the time to study, I thought maybe it's a cello. Maybe I was meant to be a cellist. I mean, the sound of cello sounds so much like my soul. So I find a teacher of cello. I was 38 and I was told, no. You can't play a cello at this age. You have to start when you are very, very young. I say, it's not a question if I can or not. I have to find out. And I bought a cello and I started and it was, of course, impossible. And one day, as I'm always interested in very esoteric wisdoms, it was just the beginning of reflexology in Israel. And I heard about someone who is a very special person. And I went to him to find out what is reflexology. I came inside. There was a woman with him. He told me to sit. He looked at my pied, at my foot. And he started to talk, and he said, please don't interfere, I have a lot to tell you. I said, okay. And he started to tell me things about my life. How many children I have, when I was pregnant, to whom am I married. I mean, these are things, how could he know? But okay, I believe that things can be written like they can be written in your hand. Maybe they can be written in your foot. And then he starts to tell me things about my soul that no one can know. And then he told me, you know, you are going to die. And I said, I know, but how do you know? I mean, I'm such a flourishing woman. I have everything. How do you know that I am going to die? And he says, because you brought to earth such a treasure and you do not use it. And the treasure is so big that if you don't use it, it will kill you, because you are a person who is interested in borders and to transcend the borders. It's dangerous for a person like you. And so, but what is it? And he said, you brought the present of language, the Hebrew language, and you don't use it. And I said, okay, I wrote a PhD, but I don't like it. He says, no, the academic work just ruins. It's something else. It's the use of language itself. I said, is it poetry? Is it prose? He said, I don't know. And you have to go today home and start now. You have no time. Because as a person like you are, it's a question of life and death, if you're right or not. I was shocked completely. I started to cry, and he said, no one can help you. It's just you and the white paper. Go home and start. And when I went out and I told him, how could you know it about me? I mean, if you look at my ear, will you say the same thing? He says, yes. Actually, it was, for me, it was not difficult to see you, because there is something similar between you and me. So I could read you easily. Go home. I said, can you do something? Can I see you again? He said, no. You don't have to see me. You don't have to see anyone. It's you and the white paper. I was crying. I went out. And after 24 hours of crying, I said, if you know so many things about my soul, maybe you know something that I'm blind to. I told my husband, I'm going to quit film university. I'm going to leave everything. I'm going to write. And he said, are you crazy? I mean, try to write. Don't leave your work at university or just finish your PhD. I said, no, I have to go to the desert. If I have to leave, I'll leave. If I have to die, I'll die. But I have to know the truth about myself. Who am I? Who is Hadassa? And I quitted from university. I remember myself sitting, not knowing what it is. And then I was born. This is how I became a poet. This is how I knew this is the role. It's not a role. This is the light that I'm here to do.
C'était quand?
It was about 20 years ago.
Et tu es premier poème, premier recueil publié, c'était quand?
It was quite quick, and it was a very long poem of a woman who is addressing God, and she invites him to dance with her, a valse. And while dancing, she is accusing him for having so many troubles to understand who she is, and why are there so many difficulties for children in the world. And while dancing, she tells him, I accuse you but I forgive you, and let's dance. Now, the poem was just written from within. I didn't know anything of what's going to be written. I just followed the words. For me, the Hebrew words, you know, Hebrew in comparison to French or to Italian, which are very musical. The Hebrew language is not musical by itself. It's like a language of prophets, of stones, of desert. But when you come to look at words from their intimate side, there is a lot of eros in the words. There is a lot of passion, as if words, for me, there is so much passion in words as if a word wants to stand near another word, and it shows it by its music. And when I hear that the music of two words has some mystery for me, I follow them. So I actually follow the path of music, of rhythm, of dancing, and only then I discover the ideas, and I am as astonished as one can be. And this was the first one, which was called Bi Adoni. The name of God was not there, but in Hebrew the word Adoni, which is sir, gentleman, is also Adonai, which is God. So behind the gentleman that she invites him to dance with her and accuses her and forgives him is Dieu. But let me just tell you, it's not the Dieu of religions. Don't be mistaken. Completely new. It's the power of life that is in the universe. For me, this is God.
Et les gens, les poètes, les auteurs qui t'ont influencé ou qui t'ont marqué, qui ont laissé une trace dans ta vie et dans ta poésie.
This is such a variety. First of all, of course, the language itself and its root, the ancient roots, the mystical roots in the Kabbalah. I see words and I immediately, like you see me, I see word and immediately the roots change and I see all the whole family of roots and meanings. And for me to look at words is like to go in the unconscious of the world. But I was influenced by so many languages which were translated. The Japanese, the Chinese, the French, the English, Shakespeare, Homerus, the ancient Greeks. Wherever I trace a very, very good poetry or philosophy, I just absorb it into my DNA, into my blood. And then it comes in my way, in my sound, in my physiognomy of words, of poetry.
Donc, je peux poser la question tout de suite, la traduction ou la traduction poétique. Qu'est-ce que tu en penses?
I think it's extremely, extremely difficult, especially it differs with different poets. But my poetry is so rooted, first of all, in the layers of the Hebrew language, and secondly, in the music. So it means, because it's so musical. Actually, for me, I told you I'm writing music in words. Therefore, the translation with me it's difficult because there should be someone who is completely musical and can give a rebirth of the poem in the language translated, because it's not the meanings. It's like a poem for me, it's inviting you inside to look at yourself It's like a mirror, and it's a reflection that we both can look at each other, the one who wrote and the one who reads. And therefore, but I was lucky to have a very good translation in French. I was lucky to have a very good translation in English, which I did with the translator, because in English I was able to be part of it. And I remember before I started to translate in English, I was reading a lot Emily Dickinson, which I love. I was reading a lot Shakespeare, to get the taste of the new language that my poem is going to be translated. The other languages, like it was translated to Arabic, it was translated to Polish. I cannot tell you about the translation because I don't have the taste of the language, because I don't know them. Hopefully, it lives there as well.
Mais ça donne des idées, même si on n'arrive pas, mais même.
Oui, mais c'est l'idée. Et poetry is not l'idée. Poetry is not the idea. Poetry, for me, poetry is something which is really like a flower, like a human body. It's something real. I mean, it's considers from words, from air. I mean, you pronounce, there is nothing, but the energy is there, and the energy is very alive. And for me, the question is, I read a lot of translations from other languages, and I feel, okay, I got the idea, but it's not breathing, it doesn't have a smell, I cannot touch it, I cannot feel it. Then it's not poetry, because it's not the idea. I think it was Valerie, I don't remember who said, for ideas, you don't need poetry, you have philosophy.
Tu écris en hébreu
Yeah.
seulement. Qu'est-ce que tu penses de la poésie actuelle hébraïque, si je peux dire, en Israël, oui.
I think that because of the very tragic political situation of Israel, a lot of the poetry deals with the problems, with the political situation, and I'm not there. So actually I cannot even tell you that I represent the Hebrew poetry. I am here for the Hebrew language. But the poetry in Israel today, I feel mine is different. I know that it was written about me in the newspaper that Hadassa Tal is a poetess of her own, a genre of her own. It's when I ask you, where is your name? It sounds so special who you are. You said, I am from Mars. And you gave me the best answer possible. I can make like a copy-paste. I'm from Mars. So I don't represent the Israeli poetry. I really come from the roots of the Hebrew language. In this sense, I think I belong to no time. I remember I gave one of my books to someone, and he looked. I think it was the book of Oiseau that I'm going to read maybe later. And he says, Hadassa, you know what? This book is like I found a translation of an oeuvre, of a book of the 3rd century that was now translated to Hebrew. I mean, it is beyond time, it is beyond space.
Et qu'est-ce que tu penses de la place des femmes dans la poésie, dans l'art, par rapport au, comme il y a 20 ans, 30 ans, 40 ans? Est-ce que c'est changé ou bien il y a toujours de problèmes par rapport aux, comment on dit, les autres?
This is such a painful question. I mean, I look at generations, thousands of years, and women had no voice. I mean, you have Sappho in the early, like 5th BC before Christ, and then nothing. We are half of the population. We give birth to everyone, but we used to be the muse, musa, for the male, for the men. No, we can be a muse, but we have such a special thing in ourselves, because the whole idea of being one, of looking at the other with compassion, with love, before you look at yourself, it's rooted in our body. I mean, a woman's body is something that can share itself with someone else, with a baby which is created in her womb. I mean, we are the creation, and our voice was not there. So thank God I was born in a generation that it's allowed to speak. But I cannot tell you how I feel that it's a loss of such a treasure that women for generations could not express themselves.
Est-ce que la poésie, l'art, est une besoin, une nécessité, une première nécessité pour les gens, pour les autres? Ça veut dire c'est l'homme de rue, de la rue, quoi. Pour toi, oui. Pour les autres?
I think it's a question of education. Because poetry, I mean, can you ask this about classical music? I mean, the answer is, of course, we need it. There is something sublime in classical music. But you have to teach it. It's a special language. When you have this language, you really absorb things that there is no other way to reach it. The same thing with poetry, and I think that poetry and literature and all the arts, it's not only poetry, actually shows you who you are inside. It makes you more vulnerable. It makes you more delicate. It makes you a person that walks in the world and knows that everything matters. The plants, the trees, the animals, of course, everyone. And it doesn't matter if he considers himself my enemy or not. He considers himself as an enemy. I don't treat him as an enemy. I treat him as a human being that I really want to hug and say, let's have a conversation, please. You will see that what is similar in us, you will be surprised to discover inside yourself the treasures of who you really are. And when you come to the treasures of who you really are, there is no hatred, because the power of life is love, it's not hatred. I mean, a flower cannot flourish if it hates something. It will be poisoned. A tree cannot hate. An animal doesn't hate. You don't have it in nature. I mean, an animal will eat and will kill as long as it needs something to survive. That's it. The moment it ate, enough. And in human beings, something happened. And I think that art has a very important role to make us more delicate, more human, like women are. Like women understand that they have to empty themselves in order to give a baby to grow inside them, and then give it birth and say, now it's your turn, it's your life.
Pour le festival, tu viens première fois ou tu étais venu avant?
No, for me it's the first time the festival.
Qu'est-ce que tu penses pour le festival?
I think it's magic. For me, it's magic because lots of time when I speak to people, I feel that I'm a real stranger. I mean, I think about what I feel in the world and they look at me and they admire, but it's not the world. And here I come and I see so many people, musicians and people and poets, and yes, they don't share maybe the same language, but they share a similar sentiment towards life. And for me, I really feel so blessed to be here. Really, for me, it's a blessing, only a blessing. And I'm very, very grateful.
Merci beaucoup, Hadassa.
Yes. The first book that I'm going to read is Dans un fracas de plumes. In Hebrew, it's Lo bati tzipor, which means, if I came as a bird towards you, what would you do with me? In French, it was translated Dans un fracas de plumes, and it's the whole book about birds. Actually, in Tel Aviv, where we have a very little garden, which I nourish, I sit for hours and I watch and I listen to birds. And this book was written from this source. And I'm a daughter of a painter. And all my life I was sitting and watching my father painting. He was very expressive painting. Therefore I had to become a very lyrical poet. I have this fire of him, but I had to make it into light, So I'll read the first poem en prose. אבא כבר באטליה שלו, רכון מעל, מצייר. אני בת 6. מגניבה כפות ידיים דקיקות על קצה הבד להספיק צבע. זבובים מרפרפים נכנסים ויוצאים בדיוק ברגע הנכון. מפתח הפלטה מציצות פסיעות של עבודה, צנצנות מכחולים, רבויות טרפנטין. הוא מצייר דיפתיך. קו החיבור הוא קו השבר. קורה אנכית על הקן, מוסתת לאחור לזווית נוחה יותר. הוא מתבונן, מצמצם עין, כאילו הביט החוצה מן הזמן. תריס עץ לבן נשען לקיר, בחלקו האחורי מילים. אני נדחקת לראות, כולי דממה. שקט, שום מילה, אבא מצייר. אם מישהו יקלה לחדר יחשוב אותו ריק. 2 משטחים לבנים ויד מציירת. זה הכתב הפנימי. מכאן אני נולדת. זהירה להדהים היא נצטיירה, ראש, מקור, כנפיים. הגיעה לבד בהולה, כמו יוצקת דבש דקיק רועד בתוך פלומה. עקשנית, ניצלה את היעדרו כדי לבוא. נדמה שהיא שרה, קול קטן של ציוץ צליליתי לעצמו. עלי שלכת שצייר סביבה, אספו את קולה בחשאי, מסתחררים. הכל נשם, אפילו הגשם. כשנצמדה על הגזעים, ניחשתי את פכפוך המים, ממש ראיתי איך גנבה אור מהחיים. גם כף פשוט בפניה. הכל היחידה, השחיל שם דמדומים, רשם פגישות, לבן שחור, כמו הביא את כל געגועיו אל כפות הידיים, ואיך בי. איך שטח הפנים רחש. אחר כך נשפך מטר של ציפורים גודש גולש, רוח נדחף לבדים, עצים התעופפו, שמעו לחישה של עלים מתגלגלים, עוקר חם הותח מתוך שפורפרת, משחק שטוח ועמוק. עבודת המכחול, תנועה נדיבה של מרית, גריעה של סכין, הכל רשום בקו מלא. גם אני רוצה. לצבוע, לקלוע פיסות ירוק, להתיז אדום, לזוז בתוך כנפיים חלביות, מניפה וסוגרת, נוצה ועוד אחת בהקשות. אינני יכולה, אני בת 6. עוד יהיה עליי לעמוד מנגד, הפוך לכלילות מתמסרת של בד לבן, חסר משקל, ממתין. זה יצריך חיים שלמים. Now the book in French was translated by Eglal Herrera and it was published by Édition Bruno Doucey, which I'm very fortunate to be part of. Would you like me to read it?
Of course.
To carry on. Okay. Now I'll read some short poems from the same book of birds, and then I'll read from the book of Pina Bausch, which is about dancing. בגיגית מלאה מי גשם, פוצעים אנקורים את רקמת האור. ירח נלכד באחת על חזה הבוקר, מתרוקן מחלומו. בין ירוקי הברוש, שמש שופך קרניים, ככלי שט על עלי גרניום, זעיר כמו להתאים לכף של ילד. במשק נוצות, הנחליאלי שוב רוחץ, בחלב של ילדותי. בצהוב זדוני מדליקה קוקייה את כוחה, סיטוט דק מסגיר באישוניה ריח זר. קרירה, הרחיקה מהקן, השחירה, נושאת צער שלעולם אינה מסגירה. משי ונוצות טווס מתנופפים ברעב רשלני. איך להבין אלילות בוערת כזו? ציפור לבנה תופחת בכנפיה כנגד הלילה, פן תחדל להיות סוף ציפור תופחת בכנפיה, תופחת כנגד הלילה. בטור עורפי חוצים העגורים, קוצבים את שעון הסתיו ואת הזמן המתקצר. מעבר לאינסוף נופי חבוי רק הרגע הזה של קולי, מתוך ששרה לעצמי אני נולדת. בכל ציפור מוגנת פיסת שמיים, בכל רגע לא נלאה של המעוף. נקודה עפה, בלי לאבד את אובדנה, היא מרהיבה לשיר. בכל ציפור שרה ציפור, הראשונה חסרת שיר. Now I'll read from the other book. The other book is called Ptakim Lepina Bausch. In French it was translated Danse, danse, sinon nous sommes perdus. And these are Petit Papier pour Pina Bausch, the choreographer. And it was also translated by Eglal Herrera and published by the Édition Bruno Doucey in 2024, just now. I'll start again with the poem on prose. חלמתי שאת שיר, אני צוחקת. רציתי לשיר למישהו ופתאום את פורסת ידיים, התנועה המטפסת הזאת של כף היד, כשהאצבעות מתנועות לכל כיוון ונשפכים זערורים. בתוך אלפית שנייה נשפכים, ורואים לא את הדברים אלא דרכם. אני שרועה באישונים מחורבלים מעט, כתמי דיו פזורים, הפתקים בכל מקום, רוצה את הדברים שמתלקחים במהירות, גם כשזיקוקי אבק מסתירים, ולשיר עם המקרה, לגנוב אינטימיות מהחיים. כי גם אני קראתי שאין מקור ליופי, רק הפצע, שרה לעצמי so far away, שמצאתי זרוק על פלייר ברחוב. אל תיפרדי מהחידה, אמרת, מוזגת את העכשיו שלך לתוך חיי, לפה הפתוח של היום. ואת? רוקדת. לא כמו ענבל בפעמון, לתנועות גדולות, רק עמוק לתוך הגוף שנעשה דק, ואפשר לנוע בתפיפות קטנות, לרקוד בריתמים של אדמה, שמהדקת את פיסת הגוף שלה ליד כוכב מפטפט. I was just told today I had a reading, and I was just told by the lady that took care of it that loves Pina Bausch, and he said that when Pina Bausch was a young girl, her parents used to have a bar, and Pina used to sit under the bar, under the table, and just watch the world. And she said, and this lady told me today, I feel that there is something so similar in your poetry. Like you are sitting in a corner watching the world, and in such an intimate way then brings it outside. I'll read some more poems of Pina. כמו נחשול הם פורצים לבמה, לבושים אור וגידים. הבוהק על אורם הוא זהה, כמעט שחורה. הבמה מחזיקה סדר שברירי, ורק למעלה רתוקים קווי אור בתוך כתם דבש של פנס שוקק, קיצי. דקה. במותני צירעה היא עפה פנימה, השרירים הקטנים מתייפחים מפחד, היא עצמה שקטה. בתוך זירה זערורית של גוף, כלום לא זז, רק ריסים ארוכים והכתב הזורם של אדם. לא נמפה לחודה בזוהר, הבדולח נשבר. אישה יחפה נכנסת לזרם הקר. איש, אישה וטנגו חרישי מסעיר לאט את הכפות, והשירה הזאת שרק רצתה אהבה, הוא מנסה לגעת. היא זזה בזריזות הצידה, מבולבל הוא בודק על גופו את המקום שבו רצה לגעת בה. קפה מילר. מעל ספלים ריקים נשלח מבט שאין מלא ממנו. הלילה מתעקש להיחלם. נזכר פתאום בתוך הגוף בתנועה שאיבד. לא את הקודר, את הנערי, את כל האהבה הוא מחפש. טיפות נוטפות מפטמת הלילה, והחושך בגרגרנות של ילד. יונק, המום ממשתי האור. אגם נמס או ערפל, בנדיבות של מים, רוקדת את המוות שהגוף מוכרח. אין סוף הוא המקום שבו קורים דברים שלא קורים. זה הגוף שנודד בעולם, אוסף חוטי אור. איך חום הגוף נמזג אל חום הלילה כמו יין, מנתז לתוך גביעים תערובת ריחות בלי בושה. מישהו סוחט ובגנבה כמה טיפות. נרקיד את הכוכבים עד השמיים. בואי נעשה את זה. on va faire danser les étoiles jusqu'au ciel. Viens, on le fait. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Hadassa.
The first book that I am going to read is Dans un fracas de plumes. In Hebrew, it's Lubati Tzipor, which means, if I came as a bird towards you, what would you do with me? In French, it was translated Dans un fracas de plumes, and it's the whole book about birds. Actually, in Tel Aviv, where we have a very little garden, which I nourish, I sit for hours and I watch and I listen to birds. And this book was written from this source. And I'm a daughter of a painter. And all my life I was sitting and watching my father painting. He was very expressive painting. Therefore I had to become a very lyrical poet. I have this fire of him, but I had to make it into light, So I'll read the first poème en prose.
Papa est déjà dans son atelier, penché, il peint. J'ai 6 ans, je glisse les paumes fines de mes mains à l'extrémité de la toile pour absorber un peu de couleur. Des mouches rôdent, entrent et sortent, exactement au bon moment. De l'orifice de la palette apparaissent des bribes de l'œuvre. Peau de pinceau imbibée de térébenthine, il dessine un diptyque. La ligne de jonction est la ligne de rupture. À la verticale du chevalet, une poutre penche en arrière, en un angle plus commode. Il contemple, contracte un œil, comme s'il regardait hors du temps. Un volet en bois blanc est incliné vers le mur, en sa partie arrière, des mots. Je me dépêche de regarder, tout en moi est calme. Silence, pas un mot. Papa peint une fauvette. Si quelqu'un entrait par hasard dans la pièce, il penserait qu'elle est vide. 2 surfaces blanches et la main qui dessine, c'est l'écriture intérieure. De là, je suis née. Il la dessina étonnamment petite, tête, bec, elle. Elle était venue toute seule, terrifiée, tel un mince filet de miel tremblant dans un duvet. Obstinée, elle avait profité de son absence pour venir. On dirait qu'elle chante, une petite voix, langue gazouillis pour elle-même. Les feuilles mortes qu'elle peignit autour d'elle ont cueilli sa voix en secret. Elle tourbillonne. Tout respirait, même la pluie. Quand elle se collait au tronc, j'ai deviné l'eau qui s'égouttait. J'ai vraiment vu comment la fauvette a dérobé une lumière à la vie. Même ce simple trait sur son visage, tout était mystère. Il y enfila le crépuscule, traça des rencontres, du blanc, du noir. De même qu'il avait porté toutes ses nostalgies vers la paume de ses mains et les avait cachées, comme s'émouvait la surface du visage. Ensuite, un torrent d'eau s'est déversé, abondant, débordant. Un vent a bousculé les toiles. Les arbres se sont envolés. On a entendu le murmure des feuilles qui tournoyaient. De l'ocre chaud a été projeté du fond d'un tube, d'un jeu plat et profond. Travail du pinceau, mouvement large de la spatule, raclage du couteau, le tout marqué d'un trait plein. Moi aussi je veux peindre, tresser des mots de vert, asperger de rouge, bouger à l'intérieur des ailes laiteuses, agiter et fermer une plume et autre chose encore par à-coups. Je ne peux pas. J'ai 6 ans. Je dois encore m'opposer, le contraire de la légèreté de la toile blanche qui se donne, ne pèse pas, qui attend. Cela a demandé une vie entière.
Now the book in French was translated by Herrera and it was published by Édition Bruno Doucey, which I'm very fortunate to be part of. Now I'll read some short poems from the same book of birds, and then I'll read from the book of Pina Bausch, which is about dancing.
Dans une gouttière remplie d'eau, de pluie, des moineaux blessent la broderie de la lumière. Arrachée d'un coup, au giron du matin, une lune se vide de son rêve. Dans la verdure d'un cyprès, le soleil verse ses rayons. Un colibri rame sur une feuille de géranium, minuscule, comme pour se poser sur la paume d'un enfant. Dans un fracas de plumes, la bergeronnette se baigne à nouveau dans le lait de mon enfance. Dans un jaune malveillant, le coucou attise sa force. Une fine ciselure enferme dans ses prunelles une odeur étrangère. Frigorifiée, elle s'est éloignée du nid, noircie, portant un chagrin qu'elle n'a jamais trahi. De la soie et des plumes de paon se balancent, orgueilleux, nonchalant. Comment saisir une si divine incandescence? Un oiseau blanc frappe de ses ailes contre la nuit, de peur que cesse d'exister un oiseau qui frappe de ses ailes contre la nuit. À la queue leu-leu se divisent les grues, elles rythment l'horloge de l'automne. Et le temps qui raccourcit. Derrière l'infini de mes paysages est cachée cette seule minute de ma voix. En chantant pour moi-même, je suis née. En chaque oiseau est sauvegardé un morceau de ciel. À chaque instant de l'inlassable vol. Un point vole éperdument à sa perte. Il ose chanter. En chaque oiseau chante un oiseau. Le premier n'a pas de nom.
From the other book is called Ptakim Lepina Bausch. In French, it was translated Danse, danse, sinon nous sommes perdus. And these are Petit Papier pour Pina Bausch, the choreographer. And it was also translated by Herrera and published by the Édition Bruno Doucey in 2024, just now. I'll start again with the poem on prose.
J'ai rêvé que tu étais une chanson. Je ris. Je voulais chanter pour quelqu'un et soudain voilà que tu ouvres les bras. Ce mouvement des paumes qui monte quand les doigts s'agitent en tous sens et s'émiettent des grains de lumière, s'émiettent en un millième de seconde. On ne voit plus alors les choses elles-mêmes, mais à travers elles. Je suis allongée. les pupilles un peu emmitouflées, taches d'encre éparpillées, petits papiers partout. J'ai envie de choses qui s'enflamment vite, même si dissimulées sous des éclats de poussière. Chanter avec ce qui vient, dérober à la vie un peu d'intimité. J'ai lu, moi aussi, qu'il n'y a pas d'origine à la beauté, seulement de la douleur. Je chante pour moi-même « It's so far away », trouvé jeté sur un flyer dans la rue. Ne te sers pas de l'énigme, dis-tu, verse ton présent dans ma vie, dans la bouche ouverte du jour. Et tu danses, pas comme le battant d'une cloche, avec de larges mouvements, mais profondément, dans le corps qui s'affine. On peut se déplacer par menus dandinements, au rythme de la terre qui rassemble les morceaux de son corps auprès d'une étoile bavarde. Telle une vague, il fracture la scène vêtue de peau et de tendons. Sueur, cette clarté sur leur peau. Presque noire, la scène devient un ordre fragile. Juste là-haut, de lointains raies de lumière, dans la tache miel d'un ardent projecteur estival. Fine, taille de guêpe, elle vole, elle vient, les petits muscles tremblent de peur. Elle est tranquille, dans l'arène minuscule d'un corps. Rien ne bouge, sauf les longs cils et l'écriture qui s'écoule du sang. Pas une nymphe piégée dans la clarté splendide, le cristal s'est brisé. Une femme pieds nus entre dans le courant froid. Un homme, une femme et un tango silencieux qui excite doucement la plante des pieds, et ce poème sur celle qui ne voulait que l'amour. Il essaye de la toucher. Vite, elle s'écarte. Lui, égaré, cherche sur son propre corps l'endroit où il voulait la toucher. Café Muller. Au-dessus des tasses vides, un regard est lâché. Il n'y a rien de plus plein que lui. La nuit presque, on la rêve. Lui revient soudain du fond de son corps un mouvement qu'il avait perdu. Pas les ombres, non, la prime jeunesse, la voix de l'amour. Il la cherche. Des gouttes s'égouttent du téton de la nuit et l'obscurité avec la gourmandise d'un enfant tête ébahi du festin de lait. Un lac fondu ou bien un brouillard dans la prodigalité de l'eau, elle danse l'immortalité que le corps réclame. L'infini est le lieu où arrivent les choses qui n'arrivent pas. Le corps va par le monde et rassemble les fils de lumière. La chaleur du corps se déverse dans la chaleur de la nuit, tout comme gicle le vin dans les coupes, mélange sans vergogne d'odeurs. L'un et sort toujours furtivement quelques gouttes. On va faire danser les étoiles jusqu'au ciel. Viens. On le fait.